listening to Covering the Field with your host, Joe Ellison.
Ah, yes. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes and reviews predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we'll ask if Game 3 of the NBA Finals was fixed. We'll have our final hockey segment of the year and talk British Open with Sean Gates, a review of past predictions, and our new You Got Hose segment. But first, we'll start off with the NBA Finals and our pro basketball expert, Charles O'Loughlin. How are you doing today, Charles?
I'm excellent, Joe. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. So this year final pits the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that hasn't won a championship since 1971, and the Phoenix Suns, who have lost both times they reached the finals, the last time being 1993. And when we left off last week, Phoenix had just won Game 1, the first time they've ever led in the finals. In Game 2 Thursday, Milwaukee's two-time league MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo and his hyperextended left knee scored 42 points and grabbed 12 rebounds, but it wasn't enough as Phoenix made 23 pointers, the second most in finals history in the Suns' 10-point victory. Charles, what did you see in Game 2?
Yeah, the Suns came in, did what they needed to do. The Bucks tried to take it away from them, but Giannis went off. But the Suns, they did what they needed to do.
So the teams traveled to Milwaukee for Game 3, with Phoenix up 2-0 and now a hefty minus 500 to win the title. The Bucks were plus 400, but favored by a handful of points. Charles, did you bet on Game 3?
I did not.
Well, Game 3 ended up being the most lopsided so far, with Milwaukee winning 120-100. Was there any reason why you didn't bet the game going into it?
Yeah, it's what I expected. I expected Milwaukee to come out and win. I didn't know by how much. There's something about playing on your home court. There's something about being at home, being in your own bed. So, I definitely expected Milwaukee to come out. I didn't think it was going to be as big of a separation as there was, but I think the final score doesn't really tell you about the game.
Well, the Bucks dominated the scoring in the paint and out-rebounded Phoenix by 11, with Giannis accounting for 41 points, 13 rebounds, becoming the second player in history with back-to-back 40-point, 10-rebound games in finals history, along with Shaquille O'Neal. That was Phoenix's worst playoff loss this year. No player scoring 20 points. Excluding Jay Crowder, they shot 3 for 24 from the three-point line, and Devin Booker got benched in the third quarter with only 10 points. What is your take on what happened there?
The Suns were just off their game. It wasn't their night. I think traveling to the East Coast, having that extra day break could have thrown them off. Milwaukee's fans were really hype. They have a chance to win the chip, go down in the history book. So I think it gave the Bucks a lot of extra energy. It's the hand the Bucks drew that night. They played it well, and the chips fell to their corner.
Did you think, Charles, that officiating had anything to do with the game, the Bucks' victory?
I like to think that the Suns lost the game, but, depends on how you view it.
Well, Phoenix shot 16 free throws. Giannis alone shot 17 and made 13. Sun stud DeAndre Ayton picked up his fourth foul with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and he only played 24 minutes. Doesn't it seem like that had a factor with the referee calling fouls, giving one team free throws, and the star players on the other team sitting on the bench?
Yeah, you could look at it that way. I also go back to I don't think the Suns had a good game. The Suns being out, their backup big man really hurts them. When Giannis is going to get a lot of his buckets in the paint, when you don't have, that extra 3, 4, 5 fouls there to make him pay for coming in the paint, it's going to hurt you. So Booker just had his off night. You said the Suns shot, what was it, 3 for 20?
3 for 24, except for Crowder. He shot 6 for 7.
So 3 for 24 from the whole squad other than Crowder, that's big. That just goes to show you someone's off. You make a couple of those threes. We're not only, talking about a smaller loss. Maybe the momentum changes. Maybe the Bucks don't go down there and make 2-3 shots, so then we're having a point swing. Basketball is a huge game of momentum. So I think the Suns had an off night, but that's what you expect with that extra day's rest and the Bucks being at home. It was definitely a must win for the Bucks, but at the same time, I said it last week, I just could not see the Bucks getting swept.
Well, I thought officiating was a big difference. And the most disturbing story, I thought, was the fact that Scott Foster officiated the game. In games that Foster officiates and Chris Paul plays in, let's just say looking at the last 12 games, what would you say Paul's record would be, Charles?
If I had to guess, I'd say like 1 or 2.
Try 0-12. Yes. So this is the same Scott Foster who has been known to have connections to Tim Donaghy, the disgraced NBA referee who was banned for fixing games. Records show Donaghy placed 134 calls to referee Scott Foster, more than the 126 calls Donaghy made to his bookie between October 2006 and April 2007, the period during which he confessed to either betting on games or passing on game information to gamblers. The majority of phone calls lasted no more than 2 minutes and occurred prior to and after games Donaghy officiated and on which he admits wagering. With the exception of the 150 calls he made to a middleman between him and his bookie, Donaghy phoned no one more than Foster. During this period, the most calls Donaghy made to any other referee were 13. Donaghy won 88% of his bets. Having heard all that, Charles, now do you think maybe officiating could possibly have had a factor?
I could definitely see how someone sits on that side of the fence. I like to think the game's the game. Yeah, maybe a call or two would have been made wrong, but I also think that's just the way Foster officiates the game. Maybe Chris Paul it's almost one of those things where Foster has his number. Chris Paul just doesn't, the games don't go his way. That's where I like to sit. I don't like to think anyone dilutes the game or, changes the game, but it's all perspective.
Well, that's a nice way to look at it, Charles. But with the Suns already up 2-0 going into Game 3, I don't think there was any question the NBA needed Milwaukee to win that game to make a series out of it, make it interesting. And in steps Scott Foster to officiate. I think the outcome was fixed, or should I say predetermined. Could you maybe lean a little that way, possibly?
It goes back to, like I said, I don't like to think anybody, dilutes the game that I love, so I would like to say no. I said it last week. I didn't see the Bucks getting swept. I think them being at home is a huge momentum changer. I said it earlier today in the show that the box score doesn't tell you the true story of the game. I think the Suns really weathered the storm for what it was worth. They kept it close, except at the half they went down, I think, like 14, 15 points, and at the end they lost by 20. But they kept it a lot closer throughout the actual play. So they weathered the storm, and when I watched the Bucks in Game 3, I saw a team that was out of gas, first off, and when I say out of gas, meaning they were giving everything they had, and they like I said, in my eyes, the game that I saw, Game 3, they barely won it. So to me, they're just out of gas. They gave everything they had for Game 3, and they won it. It's what I expected.
Well, certainly the NBA makes more money the more games there are.
That they do.
A sweep would not have helped them out a whole lot. So I'm going to agree to disagree with you a little bit on that one, Charles. But let's change directions now. I've got another question for you. Milwaukee coach Mike Budenholzer is from Arizona, grew up a Suns fan. The finals have been partly like a homecoming for him, local boy makes good story. Don't you think a part of him is okay with the Suns winning their first ever championship?
I do not. As a competitive athlete, as a competitive head coach, you don't want to lose to anybody. You're not playing any historical figures. You're not playing a guy that a Michael Jordan or LeBron James you watched, idolized growing up. You're simply playing a team, a logo, a stadium, a city. So there might be he might be happy for the Suns. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to want his organization, his players to lose.
Well, then, would you say maybe he's partly affected by the fact he's coaching against the Suns?
Not really. I think it all comes back down to you want to win, so that's just where I stand on that one.
Well, I was watching the NFL Network one day, and the show's called A Football Life. And one story is of Dallas Hall of Famer Roger Staubach. Incidentally, it's the best episode of the series. But anyway, they interview Steve Young, who as a kid idolized Roger Staubach. The first time they meet, they're shaking hands at the coin flip on the 50-yard line before the NFC Championship game. Young admitted he was shaken up, and he ended up playing poorly, and the 49ers lost by 10. I'm just saying, the Suns are the last team Budenholzer wanted to face, and I'm thinking subconsciously it's got to shake him up a bit. Just my opinion, Charles. So that leads me into my next question. I always say coaching is the most underrated part of sports, so who, in your opinion, is the better coach, Budenholzer or the Suns' Monty Williams?
I would go Budenholzer for sure. He's been there before, he's been to the East Finals a few times. Not the NBA, not the chip, but the East Finals a few times. He's a good coach. He's working with less talent, but when it comes to basketball, I don't think coaching is as important. Or let me say this. When it comes to professional basketball, coaching isn't as important as it is as the players on the court, because the Bucks might have the better coach. The Suns have not only the better roster, but the better field general in Chris Paul. It's like LeBron James. LeBron James, I don't care who his coach is. He's the coach. It's what he sees on the floor. He's the one that really makes everything run. So in basketball, coaching for sure at the collegiate level is really important. But when it comes to the NBA, I think it's not as important as one may think.
Okay, well, now it's prediction time. Moving on to Game 4 tonight. Milwaukee is favored at home by 4.5 points. Phoenix was the best road team in the regular season. They've won all 3 Game 4s, each being on the road this year. And they're 6-3 in the playoffs as a visitor. Milwaukee is 10-2 in games 4 through 7 in the playoffs, and a pretty dominant 8-1 at home. So something's got to give. Charles, who do you have winning tonight?
I'm taking the Suns. They weathered the storm really good in Game 3. I think they know what they're going to be walking into in Game 4. They're more focused. I like the Suns tonight.
Yeah. So what kind of game do you see evolving? What kind of strategies, especially with Giannis? 42 points last game, 41 the game before.
Well, I don't really think. To me, Giannis is one of the players you can't stop. You can only contain him, or if you're going to stop him, you have to build your game plan around him. So, like I said, with the Suns' backup big being out, that's going to hurt because you need to make him pay when he comes in the paint. So I would double Giannis and make him, or rack up my fouls against Giannis. I don't really care about the free throws because I'm hoping Booker, Paul, and the rest of the squad is on with their threes tonight. And, whether they have to play a defensive battle or get into an offensive shootout, I think the Suns are built for it.
So you mentioned little-known Dario Saric, who's done for the season for the Suns. You're considering that a big loss?
I do, because he's a big. He's in the paint, and when you're playing someone like Giannis, you need to stop him in the paint, and that's why the Bucks have made it to where they are. You look up who they drew in the playoffs when they went up against Brooklyn. Brooklyn doesn't have bigs like that, so they got into an offensive shootout, and when you live and die by, three-pointers and deep twos, mid-ranges, those aren't high percentage shots where Giannis gets high percentage shots because he's going to the hole. When you look at the Hawks have Capella. He's that's about as big as they are. So when he's out, or it's easy to dominate him, that's why the Bucks were able to win the East. You need bigs to stop Giannis.
Well, if nothing else, Saric was good for 6 fouls.
Absolutely.
Bring out the hammer on him. But as far as prediction-wise, I'm also going to take Phoenix. As long as the game is legit and Scott Foster isn't officiating, I'm going to take the Suns and over. I've been going with the over. Didn't quite make it last game, but I'm thinking the Suns scoring only 100 points last game. There's definitely room for improvement there. And I'm going to stick with that, which I've been betting throughout the series. And the games have been split apart more than I can ever remember. They played Thursday, then Sunday, then Wednesday, then Saturday. The next game will be Saturday, and if necessary, Tuesday. Does this favor either team?
I think it favors the home team. There's nothing like being in your bed. There's nothing like being in your city, driving your own vehicle to the game. I think it's huge. I think home court advantage in basketball is one of the biggest advantages one can get, because once again, basketball is probably the most momentum sport out there. When a team goes on a 7-0 run, that 7-0 run turns to 12-3 really quick, and that 12-3 turns to 18-4, 18-6. The next thing you know, the other team's having to take a timeout, and you could have been down 20. Well, now, you're only down 6-7 points. So I think it favors the home team for sure, but I think it could throw – I don't think it can throw everybody off their game. It also would throw the away team off a little bit, because they're in a hotel that extra night. They're not at their practice facility on their regular schedule. So I think definitely favors the home team.
Well, I'm going to slightly disagree. Half the time I'll agree with you. I just think it helps Milwaukee because Giannis is easily the best player on the team, and he's getting more rest. He's the one with the hyperextended left knee. Every little bit of rest has got to be helping him. He's getting better as the series goes on, scoring in the 40s the last 2 games. And Charles, you picked Phoenix to win the series in 5. Right now, Phoenix is minus 240. We're on pace for Phoenix to win in 5 if they win the next 2 games. Has anything at all changed your mind about that?
I would like to say Phoenix in 5 or 7 now, because I'd want them to win it on their home court, but you might have to go 6. I would say 5 or 6 now, because I could definitely see Giannis and those guys maybe pulling another one off.
Well, I'm going to hold you to your original pick in 5. I picked Suns in 6. Teams that go up 2-0 in finals, like Phoenix did, are 31-4. Although Milwaukee was down 2-0 to Brooklyn and came back to win that series, they obviously shown they can do it. Can they do it again?
Win the game?
Oh, no. They came back down from 2-0 to beat Brooklyn. Now they're going to have to come back from 2-0 down to beat Phoenix.
I don't see it happening, because Phoenix is a better built team. They're deeper. They can score on all 3 levels. They can win defensively, offensively. Game 3, if you watch the whole game, they were in it. And that's what I mean. When I was watching the first half, I'm pretty sure the first half ended 60-45, and I was sitting there before I left with maybe about 5 minutes left in the second quarter, and it was 40-40 or 42-40, something like that. And I said, wow, they're playing a defensive matchup. And you would think someone like the Bucks would benefit in that type of a game because Giannis goes to the hole and they're built to play defensively, but so are the Suns. And you don't want to the worst team to face in basketball is a team like the Suns that's built to play and built to win every single way that's needed to win and play.
All right. Well, thank you, Charles, for your insight. I appreciate it. And we'll have you back later for the You Got Hosed segment. Now, for the last time this season, we turn our attentions over to the National Hockey League and our hockey expert, Sean Gates. How are you doing today, Sean?
Oh, I'm great, Joe. Thank you for asking.
When we left off last Wednesday, the Tampa Bay Lightning were at home and on the verge of winning back-to-back Stanley Cups as they were up 3-1 over the Montreal Canadiens. You gave Montreal very little chance of extending the series to a sixth game. Well, I went out on a limb and picked the Canadiens in a huge upset. 10 out of the last 15 champions had clinched on the opponent's home ice. Montreal goalie Carey Price had been 4-0 this year when facing elimination. But you and almost everybody else was right as Tampa Bay won the cup in 5. The final score 1-0. So what happened in that cup clinching matchup?
Well, first off, I just want to say when I was watching that game, it really looked like a regular season game to me and not a playoff game, that whole game. The other thing I like to say before we get into it is when I was watching that game, it didn't feel like Montreal had any shot at winning. I wasn't scared whatsoever of Montreal winning. But with that being said, the very first period, Tampa Bay outshot them 13-4 in that first period. And I go, okay, here we go. That's where I was thinking Tampa Bay was going to get, the next 2 goals, 3 goals. That's how I was feeling. But when they came out in the second period, Montreal had 10 shots to Tampa Bay's 6 shots. And they started playing like they did in game 4 and game 2, which was really shocking to me. I kind of figured that before they came out in that second period that Montreal was going to be done. It's kind of how it felt to me. But 13:27 of that second period is when Colton scored that first goal, or the only goal. And it just felt like it was done. It felt like Montreal, no matter what they would do or how they would come back, just didn't feel like that they had any shot, and I felt like it was over at that point. And in the third period, Tampa Bay did outshoot Montreal 11-7.
Well, Lightning goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky certainly was amazing. He now owns a record 5 straight series clinching shutouts. He's a perfect 14-0 in playoff games after a loss. And he won the Conn Smythe Trophy for playoff most valuable player. Sean, do you feel he deserved it? And who would you have given it to?
Yeah, I can't say that. I can't take it away from him. Yes, he deserved it. But my vote would have gone to Kucherov.
Nikita Kucherov.
Correct. That's who I thought should have been. But nothing to take away from Valesky. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been where they were at. He made a ton of great saves.
Well, and until the end, I like Kucherov also to win it. Since he led all players in points in the playoffs. Since then, we learned that he was playing with a broken rib. It had to have been that cross-check he got in that New York Islanders series. But I'm okay with Vasilevsky winning it. The shutout at the end, I think, clinched it for him. We should also say congratulations to Pat Maroon, who joined Ed Litzenberger, the famous Ed Litzenberger, back in the 60s, the only ones with 3 consecutive cups on different teams. And congratulations to you, Sean, as you picked Tampa Bay to win the finals in exactly 5 games. I took the Lightning in 6, but we both won our series bets anyway. You didn't try in exact games. I guess you don't actually bet, but had they listened to you, they would have won. So now every Lightning player has their name etched on the greatest trophy in North American team sports, the Stanley Cup. Each of them has 24 hours to do what they want with it. Already some new dents have been put into it. Sean, have you ever thought about what you would do with the cup?
Yeah, if I won the cup and had 24 hours with it, what I would like to do is invite the whole community to come and see it. I would like to be at a park or somewhere where everybody can come out and just have a picture with it. To watch little kids be with the cup is just watching their eyes, or even adults. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody feels like a little kid. Seems like when they're around that cup. I've had several of my friends back from high school call me. You know what I'm doing, Sean? I'm standing right next to the cup. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that the cup brings out the kid and smiles, and I would just love to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what I would do with it. I'm pretty sure I would drink out of it, though, an adult beverage or two. So is it okay to damage the cup? Oh, accidentally, of course.
Yeah, I can't see doing damage in the cup. I know it does happen. Everybody having a good time, you get wild parties and things like that. But to me, it feels kind of disrespectful, if you ask me.
Well, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of drinking going on in these celebrations. So you would also get to meet Hall of Fame curator Paul Pritchard, the keeper of the cup, who travels all over the world. Sean, can you think of a better job?
Nope, not at all. I've actually dreamt about having that job a bunch of times. Just think about it, where you would go, Europe, Asia, all over, anywhere that the cup would go, you would get to go. I just think that would be an excellent job. I would love to have that job.
Same here, Sean. Well, other than the football, hockey is my favorite sport to watch, and I already miss it. No more playoff beards, no more player handshake lines after grueling series. And, of course, we didn't even hear Hall of Fame voice Mike Doc Emmerich, who retired last year. But hockey's been great this year. 79 playoff games, 49 were decided by one goal, 27 went to overtime, 33 overtime periods. Sean, are you missing hockey yet? And what's your favorite part about hockey?
My favorite part about hockey is the playoffs. The playoff atmosphere compared to the regular season atmosphere is just so dramatic, so dramatically different. Do I miss hockey? I think if I watched hockey every day, I wouldn't be as anticipating when hockey starts in October. No, I like having the breaks. I wouldn't want it to be like baseball where they have 160 games. I wouldn't want that. I think 80 games in a hockey season is just perfect. The way the playoffs are is just perfect. And I like having that little break, sure.
Well, next season begins, I suppose, 1 week from today with the expansion draft as the Seattle Kraken join the league. First of all, Sean, do you know what a Kraken is?
Yeah, an oversized octopus.
Yes, that's basically it. Very good, Sean. It's a legendary, gigantic sea monster in Scandinavian folklore. And yeah, it looks a lot like an octopus. Do you like the name Kraken?
Oh, yes, I do. I think that really does fit Seattle.
Well, to me, it sounds like it might inspire players to like crack opponents' heads or other bones that they might have. So yeah, I think it sounds appropriate for hockey. I like it. So the actual draft will be the same as what the Vegas Golden Knights did in 2017. And that year, Vegas went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. The one different rule is Vegas players cannot be chosen to help fill the Kraken roster. What do you think of that?
I disagree. I think that they're part of the NHL. They're same as any other entity in the NHL. I think they should have to give up just as much as everybody else does. It's only right. It's only fair.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you. I know they've only been in the league since 2017, but they did go to the finals. This is a playoff team every single year. They can afford to lose a player.
I also like the story that Fleury get traded to the McCrackens, but that's not going to happen now if Vegas can't do that. If Vegas doesn't have to give up anybody.
No, they'll be able to keep Lehner and Fleury.
Yeah, and what a story that would be. Fleury being on two
expansion teams.
Yeah, I think that would be a great story.
Yeah, it's hard to say who's going to end up there. No predictions on that. but Braden Holtby was rumored in Vancouver. But we'll see how that goes. So how far do you think the Kraken can possibly advance in their inaugural season compared to what Vegas did?
Well, I guess that all depends on how their scouts are. I don't expect them to be as good as Vegas' scouts did. That's putting expectations pretty high. But if they can just get to the playoffs, isn't the whole point? Everybody at the beginning of the season just has to get to the playoffs.
You just get in the tournament.
Just get in.
Yeah, that's what Montreal proved this year, being the 18th best team and making it all the way to the finals. So, yeah, they got a shot definitely to make the playoffs, I'm sure. Well, it does appear that Tampa Bay will have a much tougher road to the Cup next year, which is fine with me because I'm already tired of them. The Lightning caught a break last year when Kucherov went on that long-term injured reserve, saved the team $9.5 million on the salary cap. But next season, they're sure to lose some key players. So, Sean, which team should we be looking at as favorites to win the Stanley Cup? Odds are already out. Or, in other words, who should we be betting on?
Personally, I think it's way too early for that question. But if you're asking me, I would have to go with the teams that are already proven that they can be there, and that would be the Avalanche and the Vegas Knights. The West. I know I'm sticking to the West again, but I think the West is just it's so dominant. Teams like St. Louis, Minnesota, and night after night.
Well, you're sticking with the West. You didn't mention the Lightning in that list.
To win 3 in a row?
Yeah.
It's hard enough to win 2 in a row.
Yeah. Well, should they be one of the favorites? They're 8-1.
They should be one of the favorites. I ain't saying they shouldn't. Yes, they should, and I think people are going to put money on them. They just are.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see who they lose in the offseason.
But too early, Joe.
Yeah.
I really think it's too early.
Well, I couldn't help myself. I always bet the teams I want to win first. I bet Boston was my favorite team. Dallas, I have this connection to Dallas people know about. And the Islanders, I'm a Barry Trotz guy. So, and if the odds go up as the season goes on, I will bet them again. If the odds go down, well, at least I got the best odds I could possibly get.
In the last 3 years, I think the Islanders have improved every year. So, yeah, I totally agree with your Islanders pick, and you probably get them at a really good plus money right now, too.
I'm trying to remember. It was like 15-1, I believe.
That's fair, yeah.
So, Sean, are you hoping for any rules changes for next season? Having just watched the playoffs and maybe something that might improve the game?
Well, what I noticed a lot, Joe, not last year or this year so much because of how COVID was, but before COVID, the last few years, when teams are playing inter-conference games, it seems to me that they're always playing for that 1 point of overtime where each team gets a point in overtime. I would like to see that changed a lot. I would propose that you'd get 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime win, and 1 point for a shootout win, and 0 points for a loss.
That's pretty good, Sean. I like that. I don't see that going over with the league. Of course, none of these suggestions we're going to make here coming up are going to happen. I'm close to what you're saying, but you're right. It doesn't seem right that some games will have 3 points, 2 for a win and 1 for an overtime loss or shootout loss, whereas other games only get 2 points, regulation win 2 points, regulation loss 0 points. I like things being even. That is not even. So I would hand out 3 points to regulation win, 2 points to overtime win or shootout win, 1 point to overtime or shootout loss, and of course 0 to a regulation loss. But we'll see how that goes. Any other suggestions maybe for the league?
Well, I would also like to see how if you score 5 goals or 5 points, you win the game by 5 points over your opponent, I think you should get an extra point for that. I also believe that if you are the team that gives up those 5 you lose the game by 5 goals, you should minus a point. That way, if you didn't minus the point and just gave it to the team that won by 5 goals, then you're going to have the same kind of problem, I believe, where you're playing just to get that extra point in overtime. It's not going to really affect the team that's losing if you get the extra point. So if we put an emphasis on that, you get a minus as well. I just think they'd put more emphasis in a better game and a better product for everybody to watch instead of just going through the motions.
Well, that's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that at all, in fact. I would think that might lead to teams possibly running up the score a little bit. But in hockey, it never seems to be a problem running up the score. I mean, if Wayne Gretzky scores 5 goals and they win 10-2, nobody seems to complain. It seems like the only sport anybody ever complains about running up the score is football. So I think that's an interesting concept. Bonus points for big wins.
Yeah, they do it in rugby, so I just think they should be able to do it in...
Without a doubt. Yeah. My problem I'm having with these penalties, guys are getting like hurt and the team goes on the power play, but it's not leading to enough goals. I mean, like 20% of the time, if you score on a power play, that's actually pretty good. The one way I think we can improve that, like make icing always icing. It's too easy just to fire the puck down the ice when you're in trouble. But if it was icing all the time, then the faceoff would be right next to the goaltender and your players would have to stay on the ice, or even maybe change the rule where, okay, you can change the players, but it's still icing. What do you think of that?
I like your idea and where you're coming from. The only thing that I think the NHL wouldn't like is that it would slow down the game, having all those icings. And that's why they tried to make the I forget what year it was, but the NHL got rid of the 2-line pass so that it would be a faster game. They also got rid of, right in front of the net, we used to call that prime real estate, and you couldn't have somebody sit there, winger sit there. You had to get your defenseman over there and push him out of the way. Well, they kind of stopped that, where you can't just hit them out of the way anymore. They have a right to stay there. So that was just to speed up the game.
I guess I was just kind of hoping they would just kind of fire the puck towards the goal line and not past the goal line and keep the flow going that way.
Well, they do it for line changes, too. If you got 4 men out there, you're killing a power play or a penalty kill, you're on the penalty kill and you're killing it, you don't want to be out there for more than a minute. Even a minute is too long. So when you see them shooting those pucks down there, they're usually changing their lines up while the other team is getting it. In Joe's prediction, if you can only get the puck out into the middle of the ice, you won't be able to line change.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I guess, add scoring to the game with all these thoughts I'm going to be coming up with here. This one is another one I thought of. When a goalie commits a penalty, let's say delay a game, he fires the puck over the boards in his own end. Or he just hacks somebody with his stick. Somebody else has to serve the goaltender's penalty. I say the goaltender himself needs to go into the penalty box. You got to bring in the backup goalie to do the penalty kill. And when the penalty is over, the goaltender's got to run off the ice and another player has to come on and keep the flow moving that way. What do you think of that? I
love your idea. I could just imagine Ron Hextall, Billy Smith being in the penalty box for half the game. That would be great. No, I agree with you. It gets the other goalie in there. And yeah, I really do love that idea that the goalie has to do it himself. Then you would have to put in your backup goalie and have a player take the penalty. Yeah, for that goalie, and it'd have to be a player that was on the ice. I love that idea.
And your backup goalie would have to keep a power play from scoring and being cold coming off the bench.
I love that idea, correct. Like I said, that would really messed up Ron Hextall, Billy Smith.
It might keep the goaltenders from committing a few of those little hacks and little jabs and little trips that they do.
I absolutely love that idea.
Okay, here's a crazy one. people, they don't like hockey because they don't think there's enough scoring. Are you in favor of possibly eliminating offside? We're talking the scores are going to go up. They're going to be like double digits probably on both teams.
They did do that back in, like the 50s or 60s, 50s. I want to say in the 50s, wasn't it, where you could shoot. They didn't have icing.
Yeah, kind of like basketball.
There wasn't blue lines and a red line. Pretty much be anywhere. No, I don't like the idea of having a winger just sitting down by the other team's goalie and you can just slam it down there right to him. I don't like that idea too much. I like the old way where you did have two-line passes, and what that is when you're in your zone, the puck cannot go over the blue line and the red line, and then a player get the puck on your team. That's a two-line pass. It had to be within the center ice and your defensive zone. With that said, it did make the game a lot faster. The NHL has a smaller ice rink as well compared to the international game, which makes it very fast when you're watching the NHL. It's smaller, the puck can't go as far, things of that nature. You're seeing a lot of injuries due to that too. Legs on legs, knees on knees. I know where Joe's coming from. He's asking about one half scoring in hockey, have more scoring. One of the best games I ever saw was a 0-0 game with 50 shots on each team. It was San Jose Sharks against the Avalanche. No scoring, and they got a goal in the overtime with like 2-3 minutes into the game, into the overtime. Each team had 50 shots on net, and it was one of the best games I ever seen. It was 0-0. So when it's saying that you have to want more scoring, I don't necessarily think that makes it more entertaining. I just don't. I'm a hitting, I don't know, I guess I'm old school hockey, and I love the old style. I just don't really want to see too many changes go that way.
So I don't really know much about, like, when little kids play, do they have to play offside and all the same rules, just like everybody else?
Yes, they do.
Well, that's good. They learn from the beginning, but I'm not in favor of the cherry picking, sitting by the goal, like in basketball or football. You can just go anywhere on the field or the court and get the puck, or in this case, it's a crazy idea, but I think a lot of people would find it more interesting, but those aren't true hockey fans. Well, sadly to say, that's it for hockey, but we can move on to golf because this week is the British Open, the 15th time it's been played at Royal St. George's in England. Sean, here's a trivia question. Can you guess what year the first British Open was?
Well, if I have to guess, Joe, I'm going to go with 1889.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, this is the 149th version of the British Open. We have to go all the way back to 1860. That's 1 year before the Civil War, believe it or not. Hard to believe, but and here we continue on. And Sean, I know you like a little bit of golf. Do you have any favorites that you think are going to win? Any customers maybe convincing you to go a certain way?
Well, I have taken a lot of bets on McIlroy, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming in this week on Jon Rahm and McIlroy. But personally, I really like Koepka, and I also like Scheffler. Now, if I'm going to go for a big long shot at 65-1, Ricky Fowler keeps popping into my head.
Well, it's funny because long shots seem to do well. In 2011 at Royal St. George, 42-year-old Darren Clark won, and he hadn't contested in a major in 10 years. And in 2003, Ben Curtis won here, and he had never even played in a major. This course historically is full of good and bad bounces, neither good or bad weather. And like most golf tournaments, it's unpredictable, but this course is even more unpredictable. And in the first three majors, it's interesting, we had a winner from Asia, Matsuyama in the Masters, North America, Mickelson in the PGA, and Europe, the Rahm in the U.S. Open. We've never had 4 different continents represented. So that leaves Australia, Africa, which is basically South Africa, or South America. So I'm thinking one of those guys is going to win. And there's a lot of long shots there. Really tough to pick. But I'm not going to pick any of those guys. I'm going to pick Koepka like you, and I'm hoping for Spieth. I just like Spieth. He's a Dallas guy. You know my connection to Dallas. So we'll see how that goes. Golf's real tough. We'll see how it goes. And before we get to the You Got Host segment with you, Sean, I just want to review a couple picks. Our 9-star Wimbledon selection, Novak Djokovic won. Our all-star pick, American League and over. American League won and on the run line. Did good there. Did not go over, though. The Celebrity Golf Tournament was a disappointment, but as we say, golf tournaments, very unpredictable. Marty Fish didn't fire. Last year he shot a 76. 69 would have got into the playoff. This year only a 58. Vinny Del Negro won 75-1. That would have been a nice hit. Charles Barkley, we did hit that bet. We said he would not finish in the top 70 or ties. And he, in fact, bet $100,000 on himself to do that, finish 70th or better, and he finished 76. We were right. Charles was wrong. Maybe he put a little too much pressure on himself. And that was it for the predictions. And finally, it's time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make our flesh crawl about bets that look like winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's the segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed. Charles, you're up first. Tell us a story. Oh, it could be from last week or last month. Maybe it could be somebody else's story. A story about somebody, or you maybe, that got hosed.
Yeah, I usually get hosed every week, so I try to keep it more recent. I'll go back to the home run derby. I took Ohtani at plus 220. Coming in the number 1 seed, I was like, he's got a bat, he's doing great things. Why not? So I put some change that I had in my pocket on him. And I remember when I was sitting there watching Soto hit the ball and they put the camera on Ohtani and I said, this dude looks scared. I said, you could see the worry in his face. And I was like, oh my, did I just pick the wrong guy? And unfortunately I did. A quick note about that, which I thought was kind of crazy, is actually every dog came through in the first round. No favorite came through. And, when I was watching Alonso, who ended up winning it when he hit the 35 in that first round, there was probably 7 to 11 balls that when he hit, one after another, out of the park. And I was just like, is this kid gonna miss? And, I guess I noticed I got hosed before Ohtani when he even went up to bat, because I was like, this kid's not, the Alonso kid, he's not losing today. So unfortunately, I didn't even get to enjoy my bet. But how about Ohtani and Soto going into extra bats twice? That was crazy. And I was at the sports bar, right? Look, with my girlfriend having dinner. I looked at her. I said, watch. Ohtani's first ball is going to ground it. It's exactly what he did.
Well, you definitely got hosed. You certainly should have got at least to the second round with Ohtani. But you got hosed pretty quickly and eliminated, and you got to enjoy the rest of your dinner and move on in life. And I appreciate your story. And next, we'll go up on the You Got Hosed segment with Sean Gates. Sean, tell us a story. You are a sportsbook manager. Maybe it's a customer of yours. You obviously cannot bet yourself, but maybe someone you know that got hosed.
I would have to say anyone who had the Washington Nationals on Thursday, July 8th, when they were playing the San Diego Padres. Washington was at plus 157 and had the lead 8-0 in the fourth inning. Now, Turner hit his second home run to make it 8-0, and at that exact moment of time, if you had the Washington Nationals ticket, you had a 98% chance of winning that ticket. So in the bottom of the fourth, a relief pitcher, Camarena, came up to the plate for his first major league at bat. Now, at the time he came up, the score was 8-2. So he hits a grand slam home run to put it at 6-8. At the end of that fourth inning, the score was 8-7, Washington still. Now, Washington didn't score any runs from the fifth inning until the ninth inning. And in the bottom of the ninth, it was 8-8, and Grissom of the Padres hits a single to win the game for San Diego, a walk-off single. So I would say anybody that had Washington got hosed.
Yeah, 8-0 and losing. Yeah, you're getting completely hosed on that one. You're definitely counting that ticket. It's in the bank, no problem. But didn't happen.
Joe, do you have a good you got hosed story?
Well, you got host stories are never good. Maybe they are for other people, the ones who laugh at you and don't like you, maybe. But yeah, I got hosed. It was Game 3 of the finals, the last basketball game. I had the over. I've been telling everybody to bet the over. The over is 220.5 and 222. Score at halftime, okay, maybe it wasn't going so well, but then they scored 69 points in the third quarter. I've got 174 points at that point. All I need is 47, and they just scored 69 in the third. Things just totally fell apart. Teams can't score. Still, at the last second, 20 seconds left, there's a guy, I don't even remember who it was. I don't want to remember who it was. Has a wide open three-pointer. If he makes it, it's 223. I hit both. He misses it. 20 seconds left. The Bucks run out the clock. I lose both. Yeah, I felt I got hosed on that one. But thanks for asking, Sean.
You're so welcome, Joe.
So those are our contestants for the You Got Hosed segment today. It's my last second shot that could have won twice, ended up losing twice in the NBA Finals. We got Sean with the 8-0 lead gone wrong, losing 9-8 in baseball. And Charles's Ohtani in the home run derby, looking like a winner couldn't even get out of the first round. Now we leave it up to our producer to decide who the winner is.
All right, yep, I think I'm ready. Again, good selections, but I'm going to go with entire city being let down by Washington by giving up a grand slam to a rookie pitcher. That's his first hit. Being down 8-0, having a 98% probability to win, and it just falls apart. So, Sean, looks like you're our winner once again, or the entire city of Washington is the losers.
So that's it for this week. I'd like to thank my guests, Charles O'Laughlin and Sean Gates, and our producer, our engineer, our editor, and everyone for listening. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show. We would like to remind our listeners, you can email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com with any You Got Hosed stories or any other comments you'd like to give us. And hopefully we can hear from you. And next week, we'll do another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field with your host, Joe Ellison, a CMworldservices and the Sage production.